A little Sunday fun day in the WNBA with 4 games on the schedule. The LA Sparks head east to take on the Atlanta Dream at 3 p.m. Washington and Dallas also in that 3 o'clock time slot, followed by the Chicago Sky and Indiana Fever at 4. Then a game you can catch on CBS Sports Network. New York Liberty travel to Seattle to take on the Storm at 6 p.m. Let's go ahead and call on our experts to get some analysis and make some picks for these games. Calvin Wetzel and Tarika Foster-Brasby here to hoop it up with us on a Sunday afternoon. Let's start in the ATL. Alicia Gray and the Dream favored by 4.5. Tarika, can the Dream hand LA a third straight loss in this one?
Yes, LA can take a loss to this Atlanta team simply because they are really depleted right now as of by injuries, most recently with Jordan Canada, who is questionable after a shoulder injury in the first half of that game against Chicago. She's out and didn't return. And because of this, we don't know if she's going to play today. It may end up being a game time decision. But either way, without Lexi Brown, with the possibility of without Jordan Canada, this kind of all falls on Nneka Ogwumike. And while Nneka should also always be the focal point of your offense, she's averaging 19 points per game. She can't do it alone, right? So LA has got to find some offense from somewhere in order to keep up with Atlanta. Meanwhile, Atlanta, their biggest problem has been defensive efficiency. However, they found it from somewhere in their last matchup against Washington. So they're going to need to keep that same defensive energy when they come into this game against LA. They forced 15 turnovers in that matchup, and that's going to be really important in order to kind of create that same kind of atmosphere for them to have an opportunity to let Alicia Gray cook and win this game.
We'll see if defense comes into play for the total in this game. Calvin, the over-under set at 167, but you're looking at the first half total here at 84. Is this high scoring out of the gate there in the first half?
I am taking the over in the first half. Yeah, to Tarika's point about the Sparks being sort of depleted, a lot of injuries, and with Jordan Canada, I actually just saw the note within the last 30 seconds here that she is officially out. So another, body missing for the Sparks. I think that could catch up to them in the fourth quarter, playing so short-handed, obviously with the limited roster anyway. So, I'd probably want to stay away from the full game, but the Dream are 10-4 on first half overs. The entire league is 17-1 on these in the last 8 days. It's been a really big trend across the league, and I'm going to ride it again in this game, over 84 in the first half.
We'll see if it moves to 18-1. Let's move over to the Mystics and Wings, though. In the league standings, guys, these two right next to each other, just 2 games separating them. Tarika, I'm wondering if that gap closes a little bit more today.
Yeah, that gap might close a little bit more today, and unfortunately, it might not be in the favor of the Mystics, and that's because they've got 2 bigs in their lineup that are now out. We've been waiting all season long for a healthy Elena Delle Donne. We finally got it, and then on a 31-point performance against Atlanta, she unfortunately sprained her right ankle, or her left ankle, I'm sorry, and that is going to present a problem because now we're going to need more from the Washington bench, specifically Myisha Hines-Allen. She's certainly going to have to step up today. She provided 16 points in the first matchup against Atlanta, but kind of went missing in that game on Friday. So her production is going to be key for what now is a team that is missing Elena Delle Donne today and also going to be missing Shakira Austin, who's going to be out for at least 3 weeks with a hip injury. The key for Dallas right now is they're going to have to capitalize on that and be consistent. They have probably have become the most inconsistent team defensively in this league. Their big 3 are so good offensively. Arike Ogunbowale, Satu Sabally, and Natasha Howard. Great offensive production, but I have no idea where they go defensively sometimes. So hopefully they are able to correct that today.
All right, Calvin, I know you've got a player prop here you like. Talk to me about Teaira McCowan.
Yeah, you just heard about the Mystics shorthanded front court here, and it sets up really well for Teaira McCowan, over 6.5 rebounds. She's averaging 8 a game. Anyway, over this in 4 of 5 this year. She only played 5 games due to injury. Over this in 12 of 15 last year after moving into the starting lineup. She had 3 rebounds in her last game, so this line's a little bit low reacting to that. But that was a fluke, in my opinion. The Mystics, great defense. They force a lot of misses. And McCowan is arguably the best offensive rebounder in the history of the league. She has the highest offensive rebounding rate ever over her career among anyone who's played 100 games. And the Mystics, as good as they are at defense, are not a great rebounding team. They allow the most rebounds per 100 possessions of any team in the league. That's even when they're healthy. Obviously, like you said, missing 2 front court pieces. So to me, this is a smash number. Cowan should clear 6.5 rebounds pretty easily.
All right, I like to see it. Player props, my favorite. Now, the tightest spread of the day in the is a matchup between the Sky and the Fever. Guys, with Indiana favored by 2.5, Tariq, I'm wondering, how do you think this one shakes out?
Yeah, well, this one is going to be more of a mental matchup before anything. And that's because there was big news coming out of Chicago yesterday. Their head coach, James Wade, has decided to take a position with the Toronto Raptors as an assistant coach. Before that news yesterday, I would have said this game is a game that is trending in the right direction for Chicago. Courtney Williams had a big game, triple-double on Friday against LA. Kalia Copper just named to the All-Star game again. She's someone who's been playing extremely well. Love to see what Dana Evans have been able to do with the opportunities that she's been given. But now you've got this blow with your coaching staff. So my key for Chicago is you cannot let the disruptions on your bench and in your coaching staff, you can't let those disruptions mentally take you out of focus for this game. That is going to be a lot of pressure on them, specifically because James Wade was more than just a coach. He was also the general manager, and they made a lot of roster changes in this offseason. If you're Aaliyah Boston and the Fever, you take full advantage of this. They're coming into your place. And the last time they faced you guys, they let Marina Mabrey go off. She dropped 28 the first time, 36 the second time. So you've got to focus on stopping Mabrey. You've got to feed Aaliyah. Sometimes Indiana has a tendency of moving away from getting her the ball inside. And what they're doing is they're missing an opportunity to spread the floor. Continue to feed Aaliyah. That will help get Kelsey Mitchell open and more opportunities with her quickness to score. So you've got to keep her involved the entire game and not just in the first half.
Tarika just mentioned Aaliyah Boston. Calvin, this is where you're going with your player prop. What do you think for this game?
I love that she set me up perfectly by feeding Aaliyah Boston, because that's exactly what I think the Fever are going to do. Over 15.5 points. If you see 16.5, take that over as well. She's over these in 5 of her last 7 games. Her 3 lowest scoring games this season were all games in which she had 5 fouls. But the Sky are last in the league in free throw rate. Both times she played the Sky this season, she only had 2 fouls. So I think she's going to be able to stay on the court. In this game, she had 19 points and 25 points in those 2 games against the Sky. The Sky allow the second most points in the paint and their 3rd worst in terms of points per possession against post-ups. So it's a great matchup for Aaliyah Boston. And she's a bounce-back player. She's had 3 single-digit games before last game. She bounced back and cleared this line all 3 times following those games. So she had a single-digit performance last game as well. I expect her to bounce back here and clear this line, maybe even hit 20+.
You know, you two were very excited to work with each other. When we were talking the break, I should have known you would have been teeing each other up perfectly. Calvin and Tarika, don't go too far. Thank you for the expert analysis and the picks. Let's recap these picks, though, before we move on. Calvin, he's got Sparks at Dream -4.5. He's looking at the first half over there at 84 points. He thinks it's going to hit. Meanwhile, Mystics and Wings, he's got Tara McCowan over on 6.5 rebounds. And as we just mentioned, Aaliyah Boston probably going to go off today, over on 15.5 points. All right, tonight at CBS Sports Network, we'll see the Liberty visit the Storm, the first of 2 meetings in 3 games for these two. New York, 10-4 so far this year, while Seattle, losers of 2 straight, hanging around the bottom of the standings. And Jewel Lloyd, fresh off a 41-point performance, leads Seattle to an upset. We've got Calvin Wetzel and Tarika Foster-Brasby taking a deep dive in this game. We'll see 2 of the top 3 scorers in the league, and Lloyd and Brianna Stewart hit the floor tonight. Liberty 9-point favorites. Tarika, I ask you this. The 9 points, you look at it, and is this just a layup for them?
This is probably one of the tougher ones to decipher because, you know, the Liberty has its issues defending at time. And I know I'm going to catch a lot of flack for this from New York fans who probably already hate me, but it's okay. Because I feel like Sabrina Ionescu at times becomes a defensive liability. She was -25 in their matchup against Las Vegas. And Marie Johansson didn't do much better. And to their credit, it is the Las Vegas Aces. So it's a juggernaut team that you're trying to go against, and not many people find success. But you've got to do a better job of defending, especially at the guard position. And that task does not get any easier today against a Jewel Lloyd, who certainly has the quickness, the speed, and the ability to pull up and shoot and put up a 41-point performance. If you are New York, you also have to find ways to continue to keep Stewie involved, because this team goes as she goes. They played great defense against New York a couple of days ago and held Stewie to only 2 points in that second half. I don't suspect that that's something that Seattle is going to be able to do, but you have to, again, continue to keep Stewie involved and get her open and get her looks, even when they are crowding her. JJ, again, is someone else who has to step up in this game and own the paint. And I continue to say this on their front court, specifically because when you look at Seattle really only has Ezzy Magbor, and that's it. She's their biggest paint protector. She's their biggest rim protector, and she's really good at what she does, but it's not quite sure if it's going to be enough. She's an all-star this year, but her and Jewel Lloyd can't do it alone. They're going to need some help. They're going to need more out of Sammy Wickham. Jordan Horston is back in their lineup again today, and she's someone who was out for a shoulder injury most recently, but she's important because she does add an additional layer for rebounding. She does add an additional body who can, again, defend, and someone who wants to be a better scorer. So it looks like it could be a close game, honestly, but I'm not so sure. If Stewie gets cooking, guys, Calvin, this might be 9 points might not be enough.
Yeah, I wonder if the help will come. Calvin, as you mentioned, or as Tarika just mentioned, 9-point game here, but you've got a first half pick for us. How do you think this one goes in the first half?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that 9. Like Tarika said, it's iffy because we've seen the Storm sometimes get down by a lot. Who can forget the Sparks game? They were down by 20 plus, came back, and won the game. So I'm sticking with the first half here. The Liberty are a team that when they lose, they are going to throw the first punch in the next game. We talked about Leah Boston bouncing back. Liberty as a team love to bounce back as well. Their first 3 losses, they won the first half of the next game by 19 or more points. And again, they're playing a weaker team here, so another great opportunity to do that. Average of nearly 23-point margin in those 3 first halves. Talked about how they got blasted by the Aces their last time out. I think they're going to come out again and throw the first punch. And they already played a game at Seattle earlier this year and won the first half by 7, covering this line as well. So I would take them at -5 or even -6 in the first half.
Again, these two will get well acquainted with each other over the next 3 games. They're going to play a pair there. Thank you, guys. Hope you have a fun 4th of July. This was a fun segment to do with both of you, Calvin and Tarika. Thanks so much. Again, this game out in Seattle can be seen on CBS Sports Network. The Storm hosts Liberty later tonight at 6 p.m.